Alright, what is up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We have got something different for you today, something that I'm really hoping can be a mainstay on the channel going forward. So, a couple weeks ago, I had the chance to see Emperor live in Austin, Texas, and contrary to what some other people on the tube is saying, it was a hell of a fucking show. Didn't see any hipsters inside, didn't see any posers inside. I saw just people who enjoyed metal and wanted to have a good time. That's what I saw. So I came home and I was just all on cloud nine. Emperor was a band that I'd waited, I think, right around 20 years to see, actually. I think I was like 14 or 15 when I first heard them. And my wife straight up asked me, well, all this black metal stuff, what are some good albums I could get into if I wanted to, get into black metal? And I must have named off 20 or 30 albums. And she said, all right, that's a lot. Narrow it down to 5 now. So, and I was like, all right, that's fucking tasking. That's a challenge unto itself right there. So, got me thinking though, what are 5, quintessential black metal albums I'd recommend for someone who either does not listen to metal at all, like my wife, or someone who listens to metal but wants to go, broaden their horizons a little bit, right? So, I have went ahead and over the last couple weeks been listening to so much classic black metal that I feel like I'm ready to do this, okay? So before we get into the actual 5, we are going to start with 2 honorable mentions. Well, 1 honorable mention band, 2 albums. So honorable mention goes to Venom with Welcome to Hell, released in 1981, and Black Metal, released in 1982. Now, the reason they really didn't make the cut is because ultimately they are not so much a black metal band as they are a speed or a thrash metal band. Now, don't get me wrong, they gave black metal its fucking name with the Black Metal album. They gave it its theme, its imagery, its lyrics. They gave it that evil sense, that foreboding sense of just hatred toward mankind. Satan, everything, right? They gave it that identity. But in the day, they were still more of a speed and thrash band. So that might ruffle some feathers, but what's about to ruffle some feathers probably is going to be number 5. The first entry that we're going to be talking about. I'm keeping these as brief and brief as possible. I'm not going to go too far into description because end of the day, who wants to go into so much nitty-gritty shit, alright? Give you a brief description. If this suits you, listen to it, okay? So, first and foremost, and these are in no particular order, we're just gonna get straight into it. Except for number 1. I'm a little biased to number 1 because it was my gateway, but we'll get into that. So, number 5, we are going to talk about Bathory, Under the Sign of the Black Mark, released in 1987. Now, that's why I said this might ruffle some feathers right here, because so many people are going to lump Bathory and Venom into that same first wave black metal sort of camp, right? And while they do belong to that same, movement, right? Bathory were the ones that were really, they were taking things to the extreme. Well, Horthon, one-man band. But when you really listen to Under the Sign of the Black Mark, you really do get a overall black metal sort of sense to it, right? It's got evil imagery, it's got the blast beat drums, it's got the insane shrieked vocals. And look at the cover. It's got a fucking goat man on the front. I don't know what more you could ask for that defines it as a black metal album, in my opinion. So, alright, moving along. We're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to go straight into number 4, which is Mayhem with De Mysteriis Dom Satanas, released in 1994. Yeah, 1994. So, this album, I regard it as a special album in black metal because 1, it's one of the best black metal albums ever released. 2, the shenanigans and the shit leading up to this album becoming a thing in general. For example, original lead singer Dead, becoming dead via suicide by shotgun prior to the recording sessions. Euronymous ultimately Yeah, it was prior. Euronymous, the guitarist and founder of Mayhem, being murdered by Varg Vikernes, who did make an appearance on this album, uncredited as the bassist, as Necro Butcher left during recording sessions or before the recording sessions, something like that. But the whole album itself, it just has this vibe that to me screams black metal, right? I mean, look at the song Freezing Moon. It has that haunting, slow opening before transitioning into the, what Mayhem and black metal were known for, the vast, just haunting sounding tremolo picked, minor chord guitar work and everything like that. The blast beat drums courtesy of fucking Hellhammer. It was just... It was a monster. It really had a cold, icy, dark, alone sense the entire time. And then you couple that with, Attila's vocals. And I previously talked about Attila's vocals on a Mayhem album I reviewed some time ago. The man just has such incredible range and way of conveying so much power and feeling and emotion into his whatever style of singing he's doing that day. So absolutely a quintessential black metal album. All right, number 3. This one's a controversial take. All right, because while I cannot deny the influence that a certain individual in the black metal scene has had on the black metal scene itself, you also cannot deny just how controversial of an individual he is, if not just an overall just poor example of a human being. So, if you haven't figured it out yet, we're going to be talking about Varg Vikernes with Burzum. Now, forgive me for my Norwegian, it is still not that great, but we are going to take his 1992 album, Vis Lisetar Os. If I'm not mistaken, it means If the Light Takes Us. So, yeah, this one, I knew I wanted to include some Burzum on there because there is no denying the influence that Burzum had on the black metal scene. This album in particular, though, I absolutely do regard as very high because the atmospheric influence that it has. So, you take your typical black metal, right? Or what you would consider a typical old school second wave black metal, right? And then you put it in the forest. You get that atmosphere of the forest, that, the ambiance. And you get those kind of vibes right there. That is what this album did right here. It was the first album that really set the standard for what would later become like ambient black metal, right? So, like I said, Varg Vikernes, not exactly the best role model you want in life, but can't deny that this album right here, it was haunting, it was ethereal, however you want to say it. It was intense, it was heavy. Overall, it was a great album. So, we're going to leave that at that. Alright, moving on to number 2 now. And this one was a fairly fucking easy choice right here. We're going to go with Dark Throne, A Blaze in the Northern Sky, released in 1992. Now, I could have put any of the unholy trinity of Dark Throne albums, whether it be Under a Funeral Moon or Transylvanian Hunger. But the reason I put this one on here is this is what defined the sound of that lo-fi, raw, primitive fucking black metal right there. It was just... When I first heard this album, I was like, what the fuck is this? I can barely understand this shit. And I can still barely understand it. That's what makes it amazing right there. It is raw. It is primitive. Just the lo-fi, like, I remember watching the documentary Until the Light Takes Us, the recording process. He basically went to like some like consignment store and bought the shittiest recording device he could possibly get, and it was like, I think he said it was only a couple Cronin or something like that, and he was just so happy about it. He said, yeah, it was only this much grown and it was cool. It's like, what the fuck, dude? You just recorded one of the most legendary black metal albums on quite possibly. It was a tape deck recorder. It was a tape deck recorder. So the lore behind that album to me, and overall just the sound that it had a sinister, vicious fucking sound to it. It was pure fucking evil. Absolutely fucking loved it. There was no such thing as like build up to it, build up, and then fucking level out. No, it was like, we're gonna set the tone right out of the gate with this fucking album right here, and we're just gonna fucking go. So yeah, can't argue that one. All right, number one, like I said, none of this was meant to be in a order of precedence kind of deal. But the reason I put number one at number one is, one, it was my sort of gateway, and two, to this day, it is still in my top 2 favorite black metal albums of all time, just for everything that it did to inspire me, right? And that is going to be the 1994 release from Emperor, In the Night Side Eclipse. So this, to me, I love this album because it showed that, how do I describe this? Alright, so this album was special to me because it combined 2 things that I loved. It combined that extreme music with symphony, orchestra. I know growing up, I listened to a lot of movie scores as a kid because we were constantly watching movies, and I loved all the epic symphonies and everything, you know, Star Wars, Braveheart, Dance with Wolves, all that shit, the epic music, right? Scores, orchestra, symphonies, stuff like that, right? Jaws, that kind of shit, okay? And then you combine it with this insane black metal, and it just fucking works so well for me. And then as I travel, you know, later on in the years back to where even before this album became special to me, because then it showed that black metal was capable of evolution, right? It didn't all have to be 1,000 miles per second, darkness, lo-fi, raw production. Nothing wrong with that. It worked for the time, but still, it is nice to see someone taking what works and seeing what we can add to it to make it even better, or more epic, more grandiose, whatever. Grandiose. I don't know how to say it properly, okay? My English isn't too well either, apparently. But yeah, that to me, I'll get into my other favorite ones in another video, but that was that might be my number 1 favorite black metal album of all time, and it's one I would recommend because it's easily accessible. Like, that's why I mentioned pretty much all of these albums that I actually mentioned right here. They're easily accessible. They are one of those things that someone can just put on and be like, okay, I get this, or hey, I don't get this. This is not my thing. And ultimately, that's what I wanted to do. So there you have it. There are your top 5 black metal for beginner albums. They just so happen to be classic black metal albums, but I feel like that was the best call. Personally, if I'm trying to get into something, I like to see the roots of it before I get into what it later turned into, to see if I'm even going to like what it started as versus what it turned into. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off on here now. So if you like what you see, if you like what you heard in this video, if you have differing opinions, if you think I'm a total tool, if you think for some reason I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, please let me know in the comments. We can have a grown-up discussion about this. No need to try and convert each other. Let's just enjoy the fucking music. So until the next video,